a lot of times we have dreams and beliefs and ideas for our life. And because it doesn't happen, because we have challenges, because, we fail. And I do that with air quotes because, failure isn't an end point unless you allow it to be. But a lot of times when things aren't working out right in the way we dreamed them, we thought they were going to, and, in the roadmap that we had set out for them, we tend to water down our dreams. We tend to give up. We tend to hold back. And for me, part of the passion of what I'm doing is really rekindling that fire in people to help them to understand that as I tell them, there's an impact in the world that has your name on it. And sometimes we allow our experiences to be louder than our identity.
But yeah, I mean, we keep it kind of casual, just open conversation, and sort of move in that direction. But yeah, so I'm excited to do this. I know, like I said, we've been planning this for a while, and excited to finally get down and be able to do it with you. So if you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Well, Mark Collins, you could, whatever the resume says, I have founded Freedom for Life LLC. I'm a coach using a program that I invested in and created called Life Mastery, Living Life by Design. I wrote the book that's over my shoulder, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default, and really kind of living it out. And really my investment is in those people who want to figure out more and more who they're created to be and have the life that they're created for. So been doing that for several years, probably 15 years now, over 500 people that I've been investing in. That's the resume side. On a personal side, I'm a man who's been married for 33 years to my wonderful wife, Susan. We have 3 adult kids. And I tell people we also have 3 dogs that we treat like our children. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. Well, first of all, man, just to kind of go straight into it. I love the name of this book. Is it Life by Design? Is that right?
Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default. Yeah.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that? What inspired that title?
What inspired the title is what I saw in my own life and really some of the people that I work with, frankly, everybody I know, just to be totally honest, Cody. A lot of times we're living our life by default, which means that life happens and we respond, right? Whether it's stress or issues or challenges. And so for me, what I created in Life Mastery as a course and wrote in the book was really an outworking of my own life in trying to find transformation, but in most times only found change in habits that I had to maintain. And so I created a course and had a transformational journey that inspired the course because I was living my life by default, really like emotions, right? You deal with stress or worry or anger, right? And for me, it was imposter syndrome, fear of failure. I created and had successful businesses. I got my bachelor's degree, got a degree in martial arts, a black belt. And in all of those places, I thought that when I reached the top of the mountain, that those things would go away, that I'd be fully confident, that, fully assured of who I am, passionate at all times, not worried, not stressed, and all of those things that come along with it, and found out that that wasn't the case. And what that means is a lot of times we live our life by default. So we think that what everybody else says is what matters, right? So social media shows that when I have the cars, I have the watches, I have the homes, I have the money, and all of a sudden everything's going to be perfect. And that's not the case. And what I find for the people that I work with is that we've all believed that same thing. It's the default of life's happening and I need to manage it somehow. My emotions are happening and I need to bludgeon them into quiet with a mantra or an affirmation. And what I find is that just makes you kind of go around that same mountain. I call it the fruit versus the root. The world is great at showing you how to deal with the fruit. The problem is that when I have imposter syndrome and I deal with it and I bludgeon it into quiet with my mantra or my affirmation, that works for now. And then it happens again. And then it happens again when stress happens, when I reach for a big goal, when something doesn't go right? That thought process, the inner wrestling in my voice in the head that says, hey, you're not good enough. You have to always deal with the fruit if you're only dealing with the fruit. But the root is really dealing with the root cause, which is really an identity statement, not an experience you're walking through. So, that's a long way and long-winded way of saying that a lot of times we're living our life by default, just thinking we should manage our life. Life mastery is understanding, there's designs that you're created to be able to implement in your life so that you're not having to continually fight the same fights, go through the same battles. You can actually have the life that you're hoping for and that you were created for.
This episode is brought to you by Excel Coaching Academy. Hey guys, I'm really excited to let you know that I started a mindset coaching business. So, what I want to do with this business is I want to help entrepreneurs, business owners, salespeople, leaders, and fitness enthusiasts or athletes develop the right mindset to increase revenue, improve business or performance, and overcome the challenges needed to become the best version of themselves. You can get more information about this by emailing info@excelcoaching.academy. I really like that, man. And I like the analogy too of the root, because I think that's 100%. I believe that, because the way I sort of explain that is I think about a tree. You know that there's branches
Yeah.
on a tree, and if you just cut branches off, you still have the base of the tree. You know, you have to kind of cut the tree down. Um, so I think that's 100% correct. But I think what I like about this philosophy is you're talking about building this life by design, not by default. And I think, like, a lot of times we think that you know, you hear people say like, oh well, if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. You know, if it's meant for me, it'll happen. If it's my purpose, it'll. But
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I understand there are a lot of things that we can't control maybe on the path to our purpose, but at the same time, man, if you're meant to do it on this earth, you can probably be 100% sure it's just not going to happen easily for you. You know, like,
Yeah.
you have to kind of sort of push yourself, or push that, you know, open the door. Just to bring in the biblical context just for a second, I love this, and I use this analogy a lot. I don't know the exact verse verbatim, but it's knock and the door will be open for you.
Open.
Yep. But what I always tell people is it never, at least my understanding is, there's no part in that verse, or you know, a nearby verse that says, I will walk through the door for you. You know, it says knock and the door will be open. And so I think we have to walk through the door. And I think that's kind of what you're explaining, this pursuit of by design, you know, sort of designing, not necessarily, maybe designing it, the way I'm using it right now is a heavy way to say it, but at the very least, you know, being direct with where you want your life to go. Cause I feel that it's just not going to happen by accident. You know, I mean, I think things happen, again, that are outside of our control, that may seem like luck. People like myself believe there's definitely a higher power that's influenced these things, but it's like you have to have that path for yourself, and it doesn't just necessarily come to you. Is the way I'm understanding this, at least.
No, I love that. That actually brings a different context to it, and I like that. I think, you know, so a couple of other disclaimers and titles for me. I am a Christian and I'm also a pastor. So when you get into the biblical, that's kind of the heartbeat of where I'm at in my own life. And so, yeah, I love the phrase that you used. The full phrase is "ask, seek, and knock." It's a big one that we have on bumper stickers and placards on the walls and all of that. But yeah, it talks about that: ask, seek, and knock. You know, ask and it will be given; seek and you'll find; knock and the
Mm,
door will be open. And the interesting thing is, you know, again, I'm a bit of a nerd, so you know, I study these things, and so the phrasing that's used in that in the original language is ask and keep asking, seek and keep seeking, knock and keep knocking. It's continually, persistently pursue. You know, in this case, you know, your faith, your walk with God, the answers to prayers, all of those things. In the context of life mastery and the things I'm doing, it's that as well. It's a lot of times, well, we could go in a lot of different directions. A lot of times we have dreams and beliefs and ideas for our life, and because it doesn't happen, because we have challenges, because you know we fail, and I do that with air
mm-hmm.
quotes, because you know failure isn't an end point unless you allow it to be.
Right.
But a lot of times when things aren't working out right in the way we dreamed them, we thought they were going to, and you know, in the roadmap that we had set out for them, we tend to water down our dreams. We tend to give up. We tend to hold back. And for me, part of the passion of what I'm doing is really rekindling that fire in people to help them to understand that there's, as I tell them, there's an impact in the world that has your name on it.
Mm,
And sometimes we allow our experiences to be louder than our identity.
yep.
And in that place, when I haven't worked, it hasn't worked out in the past. You know, part of the resume we talked about was successful businesses, right? What I didn't add to that was the other 4 businesses that failed before we got there, right? So life happens. The challenge is when we allow the life to tell us who we are,
Mm-hmm.
we'll water down our dreams to be able to do that. And in that place, you know, I'll talk about my Christian friends. We have this way of just throwing platitudes out, and in that place, giving ourselves an excuse to not try again. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody does that. Sometimes we think that things are supposed to fall in our lap, but I've
Mm-hmm.
never seen that. And as a person of faith in the Word of God, I've never seen God provide for you in spite of you.
Yeah.
He's always given to you through you.
Right.
right? It's us enacted in the world that allows the things to happen. Not that it's required
Mm-hmm.
because he can do it all on his own, but because he chooses to. But even in a case where you're not a person of faith, here's the truth of the matter. Nobody can have success in their life by sitting around and waiting for it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if they
Right.
do that, then they miss out on the impact that we're supposed to have because they're alive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%, man. I agree with that. You mentioned failure, and I love that you mentioned that, because what I always say is that, success is built on the pillars of failure. Like, you don't
Hmm.
have, like, you can't really get to success without failing along the way. And you mentioned that, you had a
Yeah.
couple businesses that failed before you had one that succeeded. And I think that's 100% true, because I don't know how we can get to a certain level of quote unquote success without having a certain, probably tenfold failures, and that leads me to the next thing that you said, which was watering down. And I think, like, watering down your goals or your vision for yourself, that's like completely different from not trying at all, or
Yeah.
trying and failing and then giving up. Because watering down, man, I would think watering down is probably worse, because it's like you're moving at least in some direction, but for whatever reason that you water it down, maybe because you feel like you're not worthy of it, you can't, achieve it, or whatever it is. It's like watering down is living a life, I feel like, that you have designed, but it's not designed for you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think watering down, like, because I just imagine, like, you have whatever vision for yourself, whatever that goal is, whatever kind of life you want to have, and you say, well, whatever, insert whatever reason, that's hard or whatever, and then you just don't do that, and you do something that's maybe 10% of what that could be for yourself. I don't know. To me, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Cody. But the challenge is that that's where we're at a lot of times. And I've been
Yeah,
that guy,
yeah.
right? I've been that guy that I haven't had success in my life. And you start to question, man, is this really for me? Is this the thing I'm supposed to do? Whether it's in relationship, or it's maybe you're an entrepreneur, or you're this, person in a job and you're trying to get promoted, you're trying to get ahead, and you keep getting passed over. I've been in all of those circumstances where it hasn't worked out. And here's the thing. So life mastery in a nutshell is this: you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. I don't know anybody who's any different than that. I've never met a person yet that, apart from understanding who they are, isn't living from what the definition they've gotten from their life. So when I've struggled academically in school, right, it's the challenge isn't the experience you walk through, it's the identity statement you take from it.
Hmm.
We all have experiences, right, Cody? Great, amazing, horrible, and everywhere in between. The challenge is that some of those experiences, many times we take a definition from them that is really an identity statement. So I struggled with academics in school, right? And even to the point where I remember having my parents having a conversation with the teacher saying that I should be held back a grade, right? Everybody else gets to advance, but I don't, because I wasn't fully, intellectually, cognitively developed, according to what she said, and which is fine. But here's the interesting thing. It wasn't that I wasn't able to learn things. It was that I'm not as smart as everybody else. Sometimes we don't realize that. In fact, most of the time, we don't realize the identity statement we're taking from it, but we see it acted out through our life. And so, with that young man who feels like he's not as smart as everybody else, what happens when you get into higher grades and you struggle with algebra, or you start a business and it doesn't work out? You run out of money. The idea didn't work out. Nobody cared to buy your product, whatever the thing was. What's the inner dialogue that you have? What are you telling yourself? Is it, well, this is just an experience and I've learned from this and now I'll grow into the next one? Or is it, I guess this just isn't for me? I thought I could do it, but, I should just go back to having that job, or I should stop trying to get a promotion, just be happy where I'm at. Sometimes we settle for things not because we want to stay there, but because we've convinced ourselves that the lie we believed is actually the truth, that I guess it's not meant for me, it's just for somebody else. So, if you're not living from who you're created to be, that's where the work that I have, I'm so passionate about, because I've been that guy who's had that conversation inside. Is this really, it's not working out? And, I have these huge dreams and goals, but it just seems to not be working out for me. Maybe it's for somebody else. When you start to be able to unpack identity, when you start to be able to understand who you are, life by design, right, starts with identity. It starts with you knowing who you are. Because in that place, my experiences can just be something I walk through, not an identity statement I take from it. And in that place, you're able to persevere. You're able to go through those things, the challenges in your life. You're able to rightly understand what the truth is of the circumstance you're walking through, not allowing past experiences to tell you who you are now.
Man, you just hit on something that I really talk about a lot on here, which is for two things actually: identity, and then also this sort of the education system that we go through, or this sort of, it's really hard to not use the word indoctrination, but it's like and I don't mean politically or like whatever, but it's almost like a cultural thing, because I don't feel like at least the public education system in America, I don't feel like is I feel like it is almost nothing for creative people, entrepreneurs, people who sort of go in that space.
Yeah.
I think it does very well for people who want to go to college, go to university, and sort of be in that space, a corporate space. It does very well for that. But whoever's on the quote unquote outside of that, like the creative people, it almost, like looking back, man, it almost makes you feel like you're wrong for even having that aspiration for yourself to want to start a business, or whatever. So yeah, so you're saying that you go through this system and it makes you, there's people around you, maybe they're making straight A's, whatever it is, and like when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, like that's a heavy thing to see all your friends or whatever, and they're getting this praise, and you're being labeled whatever it is that you're being labeled by this system. And that has to have some sort of effect, as we go into adulthood, because it's already hard enough being in that space, like especially the public school system. A lot of people unfortunately don't have the right guidance at home in those
Yeah.
spaces, and so it's just everything's all over the place. You got a couple years before you're technically an adult, and you're just kind of like society says, just handle it, basically. And so but it's already a crazy time, man. And then you talk about identity, and I 100% believe that the experiences we have do not define us if we have already defined ourselves before we get to those points. So
Yeah.
if we know who we are, we have this sort of these beliefs and these values for ourselves that we follow. When that challenge comes, or when that experience comes, we then know what to reference, because we say, okay, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I like to consider myself an intelligent, a resilient person. So I'm driven. I have these things, and so when this challenge happens, I see that as part of the bigger picture. This is something I have to go through, and temporarily, to achieve that bigger picture. Whereas if you haven't had that experience, and I'm not sure if you work with identity with people or not, but if you haven't had sort of that experience, or sort of had that self exploration for yourself, and say, hey, this is, these are my values. When that thing happens, you might not know how to react, and you say, well, like you just said, well, it's not meant for me, or it's whatever. I'm not talented enough, or whatever. And it's like, no, man. I mean, I would even go so far as to say that those things are guaranteed to happen along the path of that higher vision. What's crazy, to go back to the biblical context for a second. We talk about like Jesus carried the cross, like he carried the cross. And I don't know if you know who Jordan Peterson is.
Uh-huh.
So I've heard him talk about he used it sort of as an analogy of bear your cross, like bear, like whatever your there's no challenge that we can talk about that's going to be equivalent to that. I mean, that was like the ultimate sacrifice, and I agree with that. But on the small scale, for what we can contribute to that, we all have sort of a cross, quote unquote, to bury, or maybe multiple crosses if we're being honest. But we have a part of our story to carry for that bigger picture. And that's something that, like, when I heard Peterson talk about that, that was very inspiring to think about that, because first of all, Christ dying on the cross and carrying the cross was already a huge gift. But then, like, when we take that and we apply it to our personal situation, which again is nowhere near what that was, but our personal situation, it's like, man, that's inspiring. It's like that's part of your journey for this higher thing, for this goal, or this relationship, this marriage, whatever it happens to be for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest, I don't know what you call it, a secret or not, but one of the biggest challenges is that we look at everybody else's Instagram profile, their
Yep.
pictures on whatever, and we judge our lives by their success.
Yep.
And even if we are successful people, like you said yourself, in the entrepreneurial space, we look at somebody else, and in the pictures, everybody's life's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's back in the day, part of my own personal growth journey was reading a lot of biographies of people that were inspiring to me who were successful. And it's interesting because until you can get their story, you don't understand what they've gone through. You just see them on the podium, you just see them in the lights, you just see them famous and on stage. You don't realize that everybody has the challenges that they walk through.
For sure.
And if I could quickly unpack something, it's the things that you talked about, that I talked about earlier, those challenges you walk through that kind of help you to dumb down or water down your dreams or those kind of things. And so what we work with on people with identity, it's the foundation of everything, because there's two camps that I work with. The first is the camp that my experiences in my past are telling me who I am. I have this thing on the inside, and that's the person I was. I had
Mm.
this thing on the inside saying that there's more than this life that I'm living. And so while I'm seeing my failures or those challenges that I'm not able to overcome in a way that I want to, I know that there's more than that. There's something on the inside saying there's more than that. Don't give up until you get there. So there's those people in that camp where I'm either holding back or I'm controlling things. I'm stopping myself from really entering into those things, whether it's relationship, whether it's business, whatever. I mean, whatever the goal is, it's not really the goal that's the issue. It's who you believe you are and if you have a capability of succeeding. So
Mm.
sometimes our past is telling us that. Well, the other camp is this: it's the people who do succeed. And that mountaintop thing that I talked about, where I was having success in business and still had fear of failure, still had insecurity, still had imposter syndrome. I see so many people that, again, we've been sold a bill of goods that says that when you're successful, it all goes away. When you have the certain net worth, right? It's great in relationships, because I as a pastor had the chance to have the opportunity to officiate weddings, and it's so exciting and fascinating to see young people and how they think just by saying I do,
Mm.
everything's going to be perfect thereafter. And we think that in a lot of cases, whether it's if academics, I'm going to feel like I'm smart enough when I get my degree,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to feel like I'm a person of worth and value when I get my business success, or I have that income, or whatever the thing is that you're telling yourself. So apart from identity, everybody uses two things: success to overcome it. And
Mm-hmm.
those people, they're on TMZ. They're the people who have a great success, and then the rest of their life's a disaster, or they bankrupt themselves, or they crash and burn because they thought that was going to change everything, and it really changed nothing. It just put you in a different zip code.
Mm.
And then there's the other side, the people who are holding back because my past is much louder than my belief in myself.
Yeah.
And in that place, I don't understand who I am. So I'm allowing it to tell me, and I'm doing the things that it's telling me to do. So hold back, or be in control, or don't do that. What happens if, right? So yeah, it comes into two categories, but the one solution for both, for every person I know, is identity. Living from who you're created to be gives you a life that's not just successful, but it's the most amazing, fulfilling life you could ever have.
Mm. So you mentioned people sort of using, I guess, maybe success as maybe a Band-Aid or a mask or some sort of bandage to cover up really what's not being done internally. And I think that sort of that's a philosophy that I believe in, where you become this person, like whatever the goal is or whatever the thing you have. And you can use this in several different areas. You can use this in marriage. You can use this in business,
Yeah.
career. But it's like you become that person before you get that thing. For whatever reason, man, I don't know. And I know dating is a very hot topic these days, and I don't know why this is the case. But it's like, I think some people are of the mindset that if you become a husband or if you become a wife, then you'll do things for your partner. And I understand there's limited things you're supposed to. I don't know biblically how it is, but I know you're supposed to. I don't want to say title, but you're supposed to have that union before you do specific things. But it's like, I feel like if a person, whether it's dating or business, if you become that person, if you are that person to the extent that you can do that at the moment, then that ensures that you will have that thing, whether it's a marriage or a successful business or whatever. So one thing, and I'm not married, so maybe I can't really go too deep into that. But what one thing that I will say is, like, so one thing that I told myself a lot over my journey is like, well, if I want to be a successful entrepreneur or a successful business person, having these goals, these things are great, but it's like, what do these people do? Like, who are these people? Well, they get up early, they stay late, they make tough decisions, they become good leaders, they become good salespeople, they understand finance and all these things. And so it's like, okay, well, I have to do those things. I have to learn those things, and then I have to apply those things to my life and to my business. I have to work on myself. I have to improve myself. And I think as we do that, but as a byproduct, we get the goal. We get whatever the end goal is. And one thing I really tell people, man, is like, fitness is a really good analogy for this, because almost anybody can start a fitness plan of some sort. And one thing it really teaches you is that becoming that person through the process of fitness, whether you want to build muscle, lose weight, get in shape, whatever it is, you become that person. Well, it's like, well, do you want to lose Do you want to lose 10 pounds or do you want to be a fit, healthy person? Because those are two different goals. Those are two different things, because you can lose 10 pounds, a couple months later, you might put it back if you're not maintaining that. So what's the difference? What is the person who just wants to lose the weight or want to be healthy? Well, those two people are completely different, because one person, maybe they were starving themselves or whatever. That's obviously not the healthy route. But the other person, okay, well, they're on a diet. They're watching what they eat. They're maintaining their activity levels. It's just different. It's just different. You know what I mean? It's just and when you say that, I think sometimes people think about, well, oh, I should take my eyes off of the end goal. But it's like, no, you have the goal. You just get the goal as a byproduct of who you become. I don't know. Like, I just feel like that's an incredibly empowering philosophy to have.
No, I love that. So I'll come at it from a different angle. So what I tell people is, you're either living from who you're created to be, or your world has to make up the difference. And so if you want to get into the fitness realm, it's an interesting thing. So if I'm living from who I'm created to be, it's exactly the thing that you said, right, Cody? I'm a person who, I value fitness. I'm a person who is healthy, who is vibrant, who is active, who's engaged in all aspects and areas of my life. For us, life mastery happens in 5 areas: the spiritual, relational, vocational, physical, financial. So in the physical area, we have, I invite people to have goals and a vision for what that looks like in their life. So there's a difference between those two things, right? I need to lose 10 pounds, or I need to lose 20, or I need to do whatever, versus this is who I'm created to be lived out. And so one is effortless. Not that I don't put activities in, but I don't have to constantly convince myself to do it. I'm literally just living from who I'm created to be. I'm a person that one of my vision goals for the physical area is that I'm going to be cognitively and physically vibrant for every day of my life to the last day of my life. Well, taking that back to, if you have the vision in mind, then you can take the steps to get there. Well, what does that look like? Well, it looks like regular exercise. It looks like, eating the foods that make sense for me long term. It doesn't mean I'm, militant and don't ever have ice cream. But what it means is that there's a framework for life, because I know who I am, that person that is going to be and is those things. And from that, I have the habits that create that, versus the opposite of that. In most cases, for most of us, and in my own life as well, most of the personal development programs I had were them inviting you to do two things that never worked. One was envision a perfect person and try to become them, right? The perfect me, or
Yep.
you're the perfect person, so I need to imitate you. Neither one of those work, because we know inside of us we're not that. And the second one is this. The second challenge is they typically give you habits to maintain, right? It's the fruit versus root.
Right.
When anger comes up, use your mantra of I'm a man of peace, I'm a man of peace, I'm a man of peace. When insecurity comes up, remind yourself that you're capable of doing all things in all ways, whatever the thing is that's happening. So when you're dealing with the fruit, you're having to do it. What it is habit formation. And here's the challenge with habits. Habits will never lead you to transformation or freedom. They'll just lead you to be bound to those habits. And that's not transformation, that's exhaustion. So why do most diet programs fail? Why do most people who are entrepreneurs never succeed? Why do many people give up before they achieve their goal? Because I needed to have that thing to prove who I am. I wasn't striving for that thing because of who I am. The difference between the two is when challenges happen, I give up because it was just a habit I was trying to do to prove who I was. I guess that wasn't me. I'll do it again next year. Versus I know who I am, and who I am lived out looks like this. And so I have these things that I do because of that being the case. This is who I am lived out, not me trying to constantly prove who I am by the things I do.
Dude, I love that. Can you repeat that? You said that how did you say it? You do these things because of who you are. I'm sorry, I can't repeat it exactly.
I have these habits because of who I am. I don't have these habits to prove who I am. The difference between the two is when I'm hoping to be a person who's fit, when I'm hoping to be somebody who's attractive, when I'm hoping to be somebody who's smart or successful, I need these things to work out for me to be able to feel confident in who I am. I'll go in with marriage. I tell people this, and some people may disagree. Some people may get freaked out. I tell them, my wife is a benefit in my life. She's not a necessity. My wife is a benefit because she's amazing. She makes my life better every day that I'm with her. We've had 33 years of marriage, 35 years together, and I am absolutely blessed every day because she's my wife. So I'm not discounting who she is, but I don't need my wife, Susan, for me to be okay with me. I don't need our marriage to be perfect for me to be confident in my identity. I don't need her to constantly pat me on the back to overcome the insecurity that I have. There were times in my life I did
Mm-hmm.
before my life mastery journey. But when they become a benefit in your life, that means you're fully capable and confident in who you are. So in business, when it's failing, is it that I'm a failure, or is it that it's an experience that I walked through? In academics, when I failed that course, or I flunked that test, or I didn't get that degree, is it just me learning new things and having opportunities to be able to grow in different areas, or is it I need this degree so that everybody believes what I hope to find about myself, which is I'm okay and I'm smart enough?
Sorry, I thought somebody was knocking on my door for a second.
Didn't hear a thing.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So no, I wanted to make a comment on that. You were talking about the identity through, or not having the identity through your relationship, basically. And I think unfortunately, there's a lot of people who do have that. And I think, whether it's an intimate relationship or a business partnership or whatever professional relationship, I think what that does is it opens up the door to unfair treatment, manipulation, those kind of things, because it's like you're seeking that validation and that sense of self through an outside source. And whether that's a person, a job, a career, whatever, I don't think that's healthy at all for any of us to have that, for who we are, to be attached to some outside person or thing. I feel like that's dangerous. I do want to backtrack just for a second. You were talking about these affirmations and these mantras and stuff. So I don't, do you know who Andrew Huberman is?
Yes.
Okay, so I was listening to his podcast. This was actually yesterday. For anybody who wants to fact check this, this is the 14th of March, 25. This is the episode that released yesterday. So he was talking about using stress and adrenaline, short-term stress, for immune health. And basically, he was saying that, if my understanding is correct, that these affirmations that you say to yourself have no help whatsoever on adrenaline or stress in your body. They can increase dopamine if you believe it. They can make you feel good, but they do not. Like, these affirmations and stuff do not lower stress if you're in a stressful situation. So, that was my understanding of what he was saying. So I think you're right. I think just the affirmations of, I'm whatever XYZ positive thing, I don't think that's going to help us. I think we have to know that this is the thing is who we are. Like, we're not like I will have to listen back to this to see exactly how you said this, because you've said it twice now, and it's been great every time. But we don't become the person. I'm going to butcher this. We don't become the person for who we. I'm sorry. How did you say it? We don't. It's like we don't become that person because we want to have that goal. We are that person. We get the goal because we are that person. Maybe that's my translation. I don't know.
No, absolutely. So whatever it is, whether it's academics or athletics or income or relationship, right? I don't have those things to prove who I am. I have those things because of who I am. And I don't strive for them. So it's exercising or eating right or doing the business functions that I'm doing in my life. I'm not doing them so I have a successful business, so I feel confident in who I am, and everybody else does as well. I'm doing them because I am an entrepreneur. I'm a person who's creative. I'm a person who's passionate and follow throughs on those things that I am passionate about. I'm single-mindedly laser focused on those things that'll bring my success because I know the impact I'm going to have, and I'm going to invest all of myself into having it. That would be an affirmation. And so Andrew, so I respect him for what he's saying, but I would give a bit of a caveat to that. And that is, I mean, I could give you some viral content and tell you that he's absolutely wrong. But here's the truth. Here's the interesting thing between two different forms of affirmation. There's the affirmation I'm doing that's a generic mantra, right? I'm a person of strength. I'm a man of value. I'm this or that, or whatever the thing is, right? It's a generic mantra for me to try and convince myself that I'm that person. It never works because you never believe it anyway.
Right.
But here's the interesting thing. Affirmations do work if your affirmations are aligned with your identity. So those things I just talked about laser focus, about passion, and about purpose, so for us, we create an I am statement in my course, and I invite people to do it in my book as well. That I am statement is an identity statement of who I'm created to be. That's why I'm able to roll these things off my tongue. I'm able to know these because I know exactly who I am. Mm-hmm. Now, my affirmations that I've used, and I listened to them this morning, I remind myself of them every morning, I was doing it 3 to 4 times a day when I was really working through my life mastery journey. And I'll tell you why I don't have to do that any longer in a minute. But when your affirmations are aligned with who you're created to be, not what your life has told you, not what your experience is telling you, not the current circumstance you're walking through, right? When I understand who I'm created to be and I remind myself of it, that guy starts to show up. See, where Andrew is wrong is that he's talking about generic affirmations that I'm trying to use to really just quiet my mind, quiet those thoughts that are telling me I'm a failure, it's going to mess up, it's going to be my fault, I'm not going to be smart enough, I'm not going to be good enough, right? None of those things do work. They just exhaust you. It's those habits that we're talking about. But here's where transformation comes in. When I have an identity that I understand, for us, we create an I am statement. When I take affirmations that are exactly what I'm telling myself from my identity, and in that place, I start to see it show up. Why he's wrong is that we have a 3-step transformational strategy, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions. I fully unpack it in our course with exercises and understandings of how it works in your life. And I also give you a framework for it in the book. But take this mastering your thoughts. You'll never become greater than you think you are. What I tell people, if you're a Christian like myself, I say, if your thoughts aren't aligned with who God says you are, they're lying to you. So thoughts of failure, thoughts of inadequacy, thoughts of not being, worth loving, whatever the things you're telling yourself, if they're not aligned with who he says you are, then they're a lie. There's only 2 things. There's truth and there's lies. I don't want to spend the time on unpacking that here, but there is only truth and it's singular. It's not multiple. And so when I live from the truth, I don't believe the lies. Why that matters with Andrew and what he's saying is all of change happens in your life, scientifically proven, by the things you think of consistently, the words you say about yourself and your circumstance consistently, and the action you take towards it. Mm-hmm. Neuroscience shows that this is a way to transform yourself. So when I'm creating affirmations that are aligned with who I am, I'm actually doing a physiological thing and changing what are called neuroplastic structures in my brain. I'm transforming my brain and the thought processes I have to align with who I say I am and who I'm created to be. And in that place, it's not about dopamine or energy output or the emotions that you're feeling. It's aligning who you are with the person you're created to be, and you actually start to see that person show up. So it's not a short-term fix of, oh, now I'm not fearful, now I'm not anxious, now I'm not insecure. It's the answer to this thing. I tell people, are you the answer to the room you're walking into or the question to be figured out? When I know I'm the answer walking in, and stress happens or a negative downturn in the market happens or a fight with somebody that I'm close to happens, right? The response you give comes from who you're created to be and being the answer coming in versus the question to be figured out. So instead of being that person who's challenged and worried and stressed and angry and all of that, you're coming in confident and assured with answers and with the things and peace, because that's who you are lived out. So he's right in one sense, he's wrong in another. He's right in the sense of what most people use affirmations for. He's wrong in the sense of affirmations that are effective are affirmations that are aligned with who you are, repetitively told to you so that you live it out, changing your thoughts, really mastering your thoughts, your words, and your actions.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I've heard him say something similar to what you just said about basically changing cellular biology when you affirm things to yourself. So maybe I should probably clarify, because when the context of what he said yesterday was using affirmations as a response to a stressor. So if something stressful happens to you and you feel that you need to affirm things to yourself about in that stressful, when adrenaline is high in your system, essentially. But I think the affirmations that you're talking about, like you're basically reminding yourself what it is that you believe about yourself. I think those are 100%. Yeah. Very important. Because I think anything that follows I am, when you have those 2 words, I am, whatever follows that is extremely, extremely important.
Yeah.
And this would be a very long rabbit hole, but I don't believe that we just say words and the words stop there. I think that the words go, whether it's we hear it subconsciously, other people hear it, God hears it, the universe, we say things and it goes, we bring the words into existence. So anything that you say after I am has an incredibly huge weight that's attached to that. And so I think we should be cognizant and aware of what it is that we're saying about ourselves. This is why, for a very simple example, somebody says like, I am not educated, well, I'm not educated enough for this at this moment. Like these things matter, So, but anyway, I wanted to ask you about this because so I have this philosophy, and so we're talking about these affirmations and like who am I, and this makes me think of speaking of speaking things into existence. Speaking of God, this makes me think of like affirming things to myself, but then also, I guess this is a sense of, I guess prayer is almost like an affirmation, but it's almost like I guess like a request maybe. Because this is where I'm going with this. So you have prayer,
Yep.
which I feel like is the form of communication that we have with God, the supreme being that created the universe, which is an incredibly powerful thing. So there have been times in my life where I've asked God for something, or I've prayed about something, and so, like something would happen, there would be an event that would push me in that direction. So this is where I'm going with this. Because I feel like if we are going to do anything that is worthy of achieving in life, whether that's a business or relationship, we're going to go through hardships at some point to get that ultimate goal. And I feel like, and people, I might lose some people here, but I feel like those hardships are given to us by God. Because if I ask God for, hey, I whatever it is, can I have this kind of life? Can you bless me with these types of things? And then he sends me an event that maybe is bad in the moment, but it pushes me to change in a direction of that. Like there's been times in my life where, things happen that had those things not happened, I don't know if I would have taken action after that to become ultimately the person that I am now, which means that at one point who I am now was a person that I wanted to be. So I think sometimes it's hard for us to see in the moment the value of what seems like a stressor or a painful event or some sort of negative. It seems negative, but there's twofold to this. First of all, you're asking God for a specific thing, and then the second thing is, what are you just going to go through these painful events for no reason at all? Like you're not going to get anything out of this. Like you can make this a good thing. So I don't know, man. The whole reason for saying this is I feel like, sometimes like you'll hear people say, and I think I have to agree with this mostly, that God sometimes sends us bad events to push us in the direction to become better people, to become the people we're supposed to be, and that kind of thing. And another thing too, just kind of a tangent off of that is like, I think if we are blessed with events or circumstances or talents or whatever, and we don't use those to become better versions of ourselves and ultimately help other people, I think that is disrespectful to God. If we don't use those, God, I guess God-given talents or abilities or gifts or experiences, and we don't use those for better, I just feel that's extremely disrespectful, to God. And I don't know. There's a lot packed into there. I know there's a lot in that in those
No, I
two, I
love
guess,
that.
statements.
No, I love that. And so the first thing is, when I think about my Christian walk and my walk with God, it really helps me to look at it from a father-son, father-daughter perspective. Because a lot of times I think we feel like we need to make excuses for God. And I'm not saying you're doing this at all. But
Mm-hmm.
what I found in Christian circles is we're kind of like sometimes an apologist for God. We make reasons for why things happen because we feel like we need to excuse away the bad in our life.
Mm-hmm.
But here's an interesting thing. So my youngest daughter is 26. Um, Here's the challenge in parenting. Many times you have to allow your children to go through challenging circumstances in their life. First, because you know that they won't listen to you when you tell them not to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
secondly, you know that they need to grow by being able to stand up and make decisions and have answers and have the fortitude to walk through hard things in their life.
Yep.
There's a thing. It says, raise up your child in the way where they'll go. We're raising our children to be adults, not to be children.
Right.
What that means is that my desire is for you to be able to be fully functioning as an adult. If my daughter at 26 came back to me and asked me, Dad, what should I wear? How should I pay my bills? Or what should I do for dinner tonight? Right? If simple questions are being asked of me, then I haven't raised my daughter well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same with God. Many times we are asking God to give us an answer because we don't trust ourselves to have the answer. Again, living from your identity, who you're created to be, or what your life has told you.
Right.
Many times God trusts us more than we trust ourselves. And so we keep asking him for the simple because we don't trust ourselves with the answer.
Mm.
And so if you set that aside, this father-child relationship, I don't intentionally ever put my kids through hard things.
Mm-hmm.
But life is going to be challenging. And I don't want to unpack it. We could be here all day, but this the fall of man, right? The original sin with Adam and Eve. There's a guarantee in life. In fact, Jesus said this: in this world you will have trouble. Not because God puts it on you, but it's the simple human existence because of the original sin and pain and issue and death happened in life. So I guarantee in everybody's life, challenge is going to happen. The amazing thing about God isn't that he allows it or that he creates it for us. He doesn't have to do either.
Mm-hmm.
The amazing thing is that he has faith for us, about us, to be able to persevere, to overcome, and to be better for it. There's a scripture out there that says what the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. We use that incorrectly in saying that, oh, God just allowed those things to happen. No, those things just, they happen because of that original decision by my grandparents, Adam and Eve. But even in that, he can make good out of those areas. One of the ways that I do to help unpack that in the life mastery course that I have is there's 4 pillars of life mastery that we have. We don't need to go through all of them, but there's 2 that I'll talk about. The first is identity, of course, which is the biggest pillar. The second is experiences. The third is meanings. And the fourth is emotions. That second and third one, experiences. Our experiences are either going to be determined what we take out of them as a meaning by our identity or what our past has told us. So when my past has told me that I'm a failure waiting to happen, I'm not as smart as everybody else around me, and I have an issue with a bill that I forgot to pay. The meaning that I take from it is, see, you're just, that's, the words we use, you're so stupid. I can't believe I did that. I'm such an idiot, right? All of these things that we talk about. It's not the experience that you walk through. People can go through the most horrific experiences and become better people from it. People can go through some of the most minor things that you could ever imagine and talk about it for years afterwards as if it was a catastrophe. And we know people that are both. It's not the experience you walk through. We all have good and bad that we've walked through. It's the meaning that you take from it. The meaning that you take from it is going to determine whether experience is going to be something that you use to be empowered, to be unleashed, to be overcomers, to grow through, or the thing that's going to hold you back, that because I walked through this thing, because this thing happened to me, right? It's a victim or a victor mentality. Yeah. A victim says that life is happening against me. A victor mentality is that life is happening for me. Mm-hmm. So for anybody at any time, it's the meaning that you take from it. It's not the experience you walk through. There have been people who have walked through horrific tragedies. And just to give you a personal experience, my daughter's 26, 2 years, so that would be 28 years ago, 2 years before she was born, my wife and I were expecting twins, and we lost them. They died at 5.5 months. Worst experiences we've ever walked through in our life was walking through that journey of grief and recovering from that. And then 2 years later, my daughter was born. Because we were able to walk through a horrific time in our lives, it was really devastating emotionally, and my wife and I were united in it. So that was a blessing that came out of it, but it was a really tough time to walk through. But because we walked through that experience, in the past 10 years or so, we've had numerous couples who've lost children, whether in womb or out of it, that we've been able to walk alongside and not just give theory of being able to walk through grief and be able to find peace and to be able to move forward from it, but to give a practical experience from a couple who's done it, my wife and myself. So it's the meaning you take from it. It's the thing you take that you're going to grow from, or the thing that you're going to allow to hold you back, that determines the impact and the power that experience has over you.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's exactly what I'm talking about here, is that if, God allowed these things to happen to me, or if another person sees that these things happen to them and they can use that to then better their life or somebody else's. And then I can't help but to go back to the story of carrying the cross. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure that I don't know if there's scripture somewhere that reflects exactly what Jesus thought in this moment. I don't know. There may be, but the story that I'm sure he believed that was happening was he was saving humanity. Like that was the story. It wasn't that he was going to be unjustly murdered. Basically, it was that he was saving. Like that was a bigger, much bigger story that was going on at that moment. And so
Yeah.
it's just like I think there's incredible wisdom in that. Just like what you're saying with changing how we see these experiences or changing the story that we say about this, because going back to the education thing, if you're, and I know it's probably hard to do this as a 18-year-old or 17, or whatever it is you're in high school, it's probably hard to do this then. But if you change that, like, oh well, this teacher said this to me, that does not mean that I'm not smart or not educated or whatever. It doesn't mean that, it means this. And so I think if you change that story, I think you're exactly right. I think that is the way that we grow from that. Because another sort of off on the other side of that coin there is also changing the failures that happen to you. Like when I tell people all the time, man, if you talk about like being resilient and being like just able to continue forward, well, one of the best ways to do that is to change how you see what you think is failure. Because if not, I mean, like, if you watch any hero movie, like 90% of the movie is just the hero, getting beat up and like Batman's parents died and all this other stuff. But it's like they become the hero at the end. And what I really love about this story philosophy is I talk a lot about, becoming your own hero. And I think that we all have our heroine, whichever one it is for you. And I think that we're all kind of on that journey for ourselves of becoming, sort of going through our hero's journey. And I've told this story on the podcast too. I have, my tattoo here is the bottom portion of it is a knight. There's a knight on this side and he's slaying a dragon. And, that's there's video games and movies about this story, whatever, the knight slaying the dragon, but there's a deeper message there. And it's that like, we all have, dragons in our life to slay or overcome. And that's part of our hero's journey. And I just can't imagine, it would be incredibly stressful for you or me or whoever to like label these problems that we have of like just problems or challenge or whatever. Like that would probably just be a really incredibly stressful way to look at it. But if you look at it as, oh well, these are battles that I'm going through in my hero's journey. This is battle that this avatar, which is a temporary thing that is going through this life, is battling these things so that I can become a better version of myself, become the best version of myself, and hopefully help the people that are connected to me, whichever way that is, whether that's family or employees or coworkers, whatever, or society at large, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, that was a long way to say I agree with the experiences, like changing how we see those experiences. I think that's incredibly powerful.
No, and I love that hero statement. I think it's something that's at least common between you and I. What I tell people is that part of the journey I have is to help you unlock and unleash your hero in hiding, because I think we all innately know that there's this hero or heroine on the inside. There's that statement, there's more than the life that I'm living, is us, I believe, longing for the life that we believe we're created for.
Yeah.
We may not have a name for it, we may not have a label for it, we may not know what it is in specifics, but in general we know that there is more than this. And what I tell people is, you're right. And so how do we get you to that place? Because as I said earlier, there's an impact in the world that has your name on it. There's something that is your thing. There's a reason why the world is going to be different because you existed. I see it, because I'm a Christian, I get to have the perspective from the Bible. And what I found over and over again with men and women within the Word of God is he would tell them who they are, and he would tell them the mission that they were created for. He would tell them their identity, and he would tell them their impact. And I believe that that's not just for a few people in the Word of God or for Cody and Mark, but it's for every person. There's a reason for every person to exist, to be on the earth, whether it's in relationship and investing, whether to be a great parent, somebody who's investing in somebody else's dream as an employee, somebody who's an entrepreneur, an artist, whatever the thing is, there's nobody who has a throwaway life. So it's being able to find that, right? That thing that's yours, the passion that you lose track of time and you invest in, you think about all the time. It's the you thing that matters, because it's that thing that can allow you to have that impact, right? And so you're not having success and then it's meaningless or it's empty or the fun from it only lasts for a couple of minutes, but you know that this is exactly why I'm here. This is exactly me being lived out. Everybody has that thing. They're supposed to have that thing. Some of us aren't living it out, but when you get to it, now all of a sudden everything changes.
Mm-hmm. Man, I love that. And I think this is like the key difference between fulfillment and happiness. Like happiness is a treadmill. Essentially, you have to you wind it up and and it's okay for a while, and then it dies down, and you have to rewind it again. But it's like fulfillment is like, I feel like if you are fulfilled as a person, if you are living your true destiny, whatever that is for you, I don't know anything that's more grounding and powerful than that. If you are living what you think you are created to do here. And I don't know, man. I think that's what it's all about. I think we're all here just trying to figure this thing out. But I think there's just there's been so much go on in the last decade, really. I mean, things have changed so much. We have social media. The internet is just like basically done a complete 180. It's like it was a thing, you share things, and now it's like everybody's, you're basically, you almost have a virtual reality on the internet with social media and all this stuff. Then you have AI that's thrown into it, and then we have all this, like, it's just everything is crazy. Like, everything's just so crazy, like, of what's going on right now. And there's just been so many changes, but I think that is a fundamental thing that never changes, is that we are here to basically bring that thing to the world, whatever that thing is. But then that opens up the whole door of, do we have the confidence in ourselves to bring that thing to the world, or are we doing, like you said earlier, are we watering down that vision for ourselves? And man, the confidence to pursue these things will be a whole nother rabbit hole, but it's but yeah, I do appreciate your time and your insight here today, man. It's been really enlightening to hear these perspectives, and I think certainly the biblical aspect of it, that perspective really is enlightening too. I think I do want to ask you this, because I asked you this before we started, about the verse of the kingdom of heaven is within you, because this is something that I refer to a lot, and I don't know the exact context. I think it might have been that Jesus was saying that, maybe every person has the ability to be saved, for salvation. Maybe that's what the reference there was. But one thing that I talk to people sometimes, that I'll be like, well, the Bible says the kingdom of heaven is within you. So when I hear that, I don't think it's necessarily that we just bring heaven to us on earth. I think that's it's almost like a selfish and or disrespectful way to look at it. But I think it's like, I think we have that ability to have that ultimate goal for ourselves, whatever that goal is, which maybe is metaphorical to heaven, but not necessarily, it's nowhere near heaven. I understand that, but I'm just saying, on a metaphorical basis, maybe we have that ability to bring that ultimate goal to life for ourselves. I mean, that's just, I don't know, and I think that's kind of what we've been talking about here. I know that there's, and I'm not trying to say, explore multiple interpretations or translations or anything. I'm just saying the biblical, the aspect of it, and then the, I guess, other interpretation of it would be that you have that ability. But even if you look at it that way, I don't think that's like, I think both things are true. I think both things is that, that is everybody has the ability to be saved. And then I also think that what everybody has that ability to bring that goal for themselves, that vision to life, like it is within you. So I don't know if maybe I didn't ask that question the right way. I probably made it confusing.
You did great. So the full context of it was, he was talking to some people, and he said this. He said, "You say that the kingdom of heaven is here, or the kingdom of heaven is there, but the kingdom of heaven is within you." And what he was talking about was, they were looking for miracles and signs. They were looking for sometime when and some place where they would find the kingdom of heaven. They were chasing after the kingdom of heaven. And he was saying that God's kingdom is inside of you. So as a Christian, you could say this, that when we accept Jesus as our Lord and Savior, the Holy Spirit comes to live within us. So we have the Holy Spirit on the inside. So the kingdom of heaven through the Holy Spirit is absolutely inside you. But you could say philosophically as well, easy for me to say, that you're looking to chase down these things to feel satisfied, these things to feel fulfilled. You're going after all of the things around you. You don't realize that it's already in you. Which, if you could wrap it up into what I'm talking about and you're talking about today, is you're looking to find identity in the people that you're with, and the income that you have, and the accomplishments that you accomplish in your life. But you've already got it on the inside. You're using outside things to create an inside value, not realizing you already have ownership of it. Who you are lived out is that thing. So, and from a Christian or spiritual perspective, it's understanding that you don't need God to do for you what he's already placed on the inside of you. Back to those prayers that you talked about, right? We can sometimes pray for God to bring peace for us. God, bring me peace, bring me peace. Well, one of the fruits of the Spirit is peace. Mm-hmm. So you're asking him to give you the thing he's already placed inside you. And in that place, again, he trusts us more than we trust ourselves. So from an entrepreneur standpoint, from an identity standpoint, from an impact standpoint, sometimes you're chasing for those things outside of you. When I get that title, when I get that position, when I get that role, then I'll be somebody of value. What if you already are that person of value? Instead of chasing after it, maybe it's your time to unleash it. And in that place, again, you said happiness versus fulfillment. The term I use with the people I work with is success versus fulfillment. Success is easy. It's just you working harder, longer than the next person until you achieve that goal. At the end of the day, I know a lot of people who are successful and miserable, who are successful and their life is a catastrophe, who are successful and addicted because they thought that everything would change when I grabbed that thing. Fulfillment is me understanding that I'm the impact, and unleashing that in the world changes the world, and it gives me the satisfaction that nothing can buy.
Man, that is powerful. I love that. Very enlightening. Because I've never looked at it that way, but I think you are right that these things sort of maybe already exist within us. And I think, going back to walking through the door, I think it's definitely our responsibility to, if the door is open, to walk through that door. But listen, man, we could keep going. I know you got things that you got to get take care of. Do you have social media or website or anything that you want to share while you're here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. It's freedom-4-life.net, freedom-4-life.net. So that's where you can find my course, Life Mastery. I have an ebook version of my book there, so you can have it on any device. So, and I am on all the socials. I have a YouTube channel, Freedom for Life. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn are the three that I mostly travel through. So you can reach me out on any of those as well.
Okay. So, and I'm really curious to hear what you had to say about this. I ask everybody this question before we close, which is if you could share one of the most important lessons you've ever learned. It can be from your personal life, if you're comfortable sharing it, from your career. What do you think is one of the most important, most valuable lessons you ever learned?
One of the most important lessons that I ever learned. Gosh, that's a good one. So I'm trying to think if I should say something new or just reiterate what I've already talked about. So one of the most important lessons that I learned was that I was right. That the person I believed I could be, he could actually show up. And the reason why that was important was he didn't fully show up when I was successful in business. He didn't show up when I had a marriage. He didn't show up when I had all these things I thought were what mattered. He showed up when I understood that I already was that guy, that the person I believed I could be, I was actually becoming. And when I found the strategies to be able to get there, I absolutely saw him unleashed. The reason why that lesson is so important was it allowed me to live the life that I was created for, not live a life that was a substitute that I was settling for.
Man, yeah. And see, that's what I was saying earlier, that whatever follows I am is really, really, because I think I don't think we are aware of how much we believe that. Like whatever we say I am, like I am X, whatever. And it's like, gosh, that's because it's, you hear people say like, if you believe you can, or you believe you can't, you're right. Whichever one you believe.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's where the, building that relationship with ourselves comes in, and building that self-confidence with ourselves to be able to, because it's one thing to have the voice to say, I am this, I can do this or whatever. But then, believing that you can do that or following through with that, that's a whole different, that is the journey. I mean, that's the journey. So, but yeah, man, it's been great. It's been great talking to you. If you can hang out for just a couple seconds, I'm going to explain the upload process to you, but it's been a good conversation with you today.
Thanks so much, Cody. I've been having a great time with you, man.
Thank you. Hey guys, I really appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you found this content or this episode useful and intriguing, you can visit us on social media. This is Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. Pure Wisdom Podcast on all social medias. You can interact with us, follow, like, and share there, and we will see you guys next time.